Okay, everybody, Steve Burns here. I'm back for another tutorial. Bart had a question on the painting of his image. Actually, I'm going to go and take a look at this here. Let's take a look at the Discord. And Bart, if I remember correctly, I'm going to kind of go up a little bit, wants to match the colors that he sees here, but he was having a little bit of problems actually accomplishing it. So what it looks to me like as you paint colors in certain areas, his painting isn't showing up on the correct areas, or it's not really matching the colors that he has here. That's what I think he's saying in his question. So I'm going to address that. So I have Bart has uploaded his pod racer. I've just turned everything off so we can see the two engines that I'm going to use as an example in this case. And the engine to the right is the one that I modified, and the engine to the left is Bart's original. So, targeting the original engine, I decided to start by looking at the UVs, because if you're going to do painting in Blender, your UVs have got to be right, and then you have to apply an image to your material. So your UVs have to be correct. You have to apply a material, and part of that material is you have to apply an image to it. And in the last tutorial I've done for you guys, I recommended that you create like a blank sheet of paper, like a white PNG sheet of paper, and attach it to your materials. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. So there's my object. I'm going to go to my tab, go to edit mode to take a look at the UVs. Now, the first thing I'm noticing here is that the UVs are all over the place. That the edges are connecting to different portions of your image, so that if you take a look at this closely, it looks like, if you follow the lines, it looks like one portion of the UV, if you start painting back here on this UV, other UVs are going to be affected too. So if I start painting with black back here, black is also going to appear in some of these areas that we're seeing on the bottom within the circle. What are those areas are referenced to? Well, let's see. If I hit the number 3 key to select my face view and select these edges, you can see that that internal portion is going to be affected. If I click and drag this whole section there, you can see two different portions are being affected. Right, or three different areas. So your UVs on this particular instance is not really correct. I corrected those UVs for you. I am now, just as an FYI, you can get away with it by selecting your mesh, right? Selecting your entire, hitting A key, go to your hit the UV, right? Hit the U key. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Hit the U key on the keyboard, and then use your Smart UV project, and that'll break everything apart for you, right? So let's just do it now, just to see what it does. So hit my U key on the keyboard and Smart UV project, and then click OK. And there you go. It breaks it apart. Now take a look at how it breaks it apart. You don't have anything overlapping on top of one another. You want to avoid that overlapping as much as possible. Did Blender do something that may be satisfactory to us? No, but will this work in painting? Yes, because nothing's overlapping. All right, now I'm going to share with you. I'm going to undo what I did so we can go back to your original. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the one that I did modified. Go to my object view. Let's tag this one now, and then go to edit view here. So this is what I did for you. So I just utilized the edges, targeted edges, marked the seams, and and looked at the shapes and marked the seams that I thought was gonna be most recognizable and would show up satisfactory on the UV map. And this one does a much better job than what the Smart UV map has done. Okay, could I do a better job on this? Yeah, absolutely. But this is good enough. Nothing's overlapping. You've got some gaps between each of your UV islands, so I know where things are. As I select each one, you can see I know where those are. Okay. I'm going to keep it like this for now. All right. So now, with that said, the UV has been established. Let's go establish material. Let's go make sure we have material established to it. I'm going to go down here to the material. I have not yet established a material to this, so let's see, tab key, object mode, there. All right, so we're going to establish a material to it now. So hit the new key, and we're going to call this one right engine, or engine right. Represent the engine on the right side there. Engine, oops, let's go back over here. Right, okay, there we go. So now a material has been applied to it. Okay, so at this point, let's go over to the shading view, and let's apply our image. So go to my shading view, come right down here to my nodes. Okay, let's bring one up, get in a little closer, and we're going to establish an image. So you must establish an image to your material. I find for it to work most effectively. So I created a new file, and let me actually come over, go to my view here, go to extra large. So I created a new file and I put it into the BART folder. Okay, and it should be a PNG. Actually, here it should be a PNG. Let me make sure. I'm going to go to my Discord tutorial and BART Pod Racer, and there it is. The blank sheet is what I called it. Go to my view menu, go to my extra large, and there it is. Okay, so blank sheet .png is what I called, and this is just a PNG with a white background. That's all I'm doing. So I'm going to pull that out of the way, and we're going to establish that. So target the principal BSDF. We have to highlight it white, Command or Control T. That attaches all our nodes. I see my object goes black there, right? That automatically tells you you're going in the right direction, right? So we told it that an image is going to be applied, but we haven't applied it yet. Now we're going to go get it. Go to Open, all right? And there's my blank sheet there. This went back to my Pod Racer folder, and click Open. There it is, Open Image. Now there's your blank sheet. So once that's done, we're all ready to go ahead and start painting. I'm going to come right up here to the texture paint option, and immediately you can see on your left hand side your blank sheet has been applied to your UV map. Okay, so wherever I paint, it's going to be it's going to paint on that particular section of UV map. So, and then because they're not overlapping, we should not have a problem with the paint appearing somewhere else on our model. So I'm going to come right over here and go to my tools on the left hand side. All right, so I've got my draw tool, and that's what I have selected here. Okay, and I have already some type of a procedural select. So if I start to paint, and I'm going to kind of get in here closer, right? I can start to paint my procedure on there, right? Okay. And I can change all that. I can change the color if I want to, right? If I click on this object here, let's see if I go back to this. Let's see what this one does. Okay, that's the orange color I think I established. Now we can start painting onto the model. So the big question is, how do you match the colors that we see here, that you saw? So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to go ahead and bring in an image. So now I am able to lay down some paint. I'm going to go ahead and fill this. I'm going to go to a pure white, and just select the color here. I'm going to come right over here to the fill command, and then click on it. It'll fill everything with pure white. Okay. Now this is what we're going to do. Let's take this into edit mode real quick, and modeling mode. There we go. Not the edit mode, but the modeling mode. And I'm going to turn off my, I guess we can go ahead and leave that on. We'll leave the wireframe on. We'll need the wireframe off, but we're going to go to tab key, go to our object mode. There we go. Okay. Now, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go to my side view like so. In fact, I'm going to go to the other side view. I'm going to hit Control 3 to flip it to the opposite side. Now, I'm going to go find, here is your image here of your pod racer. So I'm going to come over here to the view and go to extra large icon so we can see a little bit better. And we're going to drag that on in here because one of your questions was, how do you match the color on this darn thing? So there we go. We're going to do it this way. So once it's placed in there, and you have to be an orthographic view for that to work, right? So I hit the Control 3 to put us into the right or left side orthographic view, and then when I pull it on back and flip it around, there it is. I think what I'll do is I will make this larger. So target this and just grab any corner, and we can enlarge it. So we're going to make it about the size of the piece that we're working with. Approximately. It doesn't have to be exact. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, now we're going to start sampling some colors here. All right, I'm going to target. Now what I'll do, just to make this easier, I'm going to turn off the other ones. I'm going to select it, hit the H key for hide to turn that off. Okay, so we're going to put that right on top of each other. Looks good. Now let's target the engine that we want to work with. Let's go to our tab key and go to our texture paint mode here. All right, so once I'm in my texture paint mode, I'm gonna come right over here. Let's go ahead and bring this other menu over and go over to my tool, and I get to see my paint options. All right, so from here, if I select any color like so, I can paint that on there, as we can already see. I want to paint these colors up here that I see on my ship. Let's get in a little bit closer. So let's sample those colors. Let's sample several colors on there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come over here, right where my brush options are, and we're going to scroll down just a little bit. Let's scroll on down here toward the bottom, and let's go and find our color palette right there in front of us. I'm gonna hit the caret on the left hand side. Here's my color palette. Now I'm going to add a color palette by hitting the plus symbol. Click it. I have one there. Okay. And if I hold my S key down on my keyboard, just hold it down and don't release it, and you get an eyedropper. If I come over here, and let's say I'm going to select some of this black area here, select it, you're sampling that black area. Okay. If I hold down the Control key and click another one, another swatch comes up. That's going to be more your orange color. If I want this beige color in here, click it. Another swatch of that beige color shows up. So we can target various areas of our image. I'm gonna go to this little bit lighter black area there, right there. It's kind of like a very dark gray right on the end, and we can use this to actually paint with. Okay, so let's go over. I'm going to add one more color. This really light one right here on the edge of the wing, and we'll use that to paint with. All right, so at this point we've got our colors, right? So if I come over and sample that swatch, we can start laying down that color, and I'm going to just lay it down right across here, and we can spill over a little bit since we paint with a light color anyway. I'm going to paint everywhere. Just to drop it down very quickly. Now if I want to start adding some of the darker black, So I'm gonna start with the lighter black first. We'll add some of the darker black on in there. So I'm gonna come over here to the swatch, palette swatch, go to second from the right hand side. I'm gonna select it. Now I want to make sure I'm using the pressure of my pen, of my stylus. So I'm gonna come on up, and right here for the strength, I've got both the pressure is affecting the size as well as the opacity. I don't want the size to be affected. I want the size to be what I want it to be, which is right here, which is the circumference that I'm looking at, or the diameter that I'm looking at. So I'm going to turn off the sizing option for using pressure to resize my brush. That way I can paint at that size. Okay. I'm pressing light, and then harder, and then lighter. Let's see what we can do here. I'm going to turn this off for a second. I'm going to undo that a little bit. Let's turn that there. Alright, so I made my pen is so sensitive here that let's try something else. Go ahead and undo this back. Let's turn this one off and turn out my radius is being affected here. Let's turn this off here. Let's turn that on and see what happens. There we go. So we press a light, harder, and it goes bigger. So that's my radius. That's affecting radius. I don't want that to happen. I want the radius to be turned off. Okay. I'm going to my strength, and I'm going to select the left one for the strength. Press light, and then harder and harder. There we go. All right, that's what I'm looking for. So undo, undo. I'm going to go ahead and drag it on in there. So if I press light, harder, harder, and even harder, now I can control the opacity based on the pressure of my pen. If I go over here to a darker black, like the one that I've selected right down here at the bottom, to the second from the left hand side, press light, harder, 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 and see as I lift up and come over it again, is adding darker shades. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and fill this again with the lighter color. So I'm gonna bring this right back up to white. Go to my fill right over here and drop it down on my object, and that's gonna fill everything. I'm gonna go back up to my brush at the top, and the brush is selected. And I think what I'm going to do, just to make this easier, is I'm going to come down here and get that beige color there. Go to my fill and just drop it down on everything. Right? Let the computer think a little bit. It's taking a hot second to kind of drop everything down. It's going to be very, very light in color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to my brush. Go get that lighter brown. Make my brush a little bit bigger. And I'm going to just start to kind of paint right on these edges. So keep in mind, just kind of start light. And let's go take a look at a reference here. Okay. So I'm going to just reduce the brush size down just a little bit and just tackle those edges. I'm gonna have to make that beige area a little bit richer as well. I can come back. Let me go to the beige. Let's see what it looks like if I kind of bring this on down in here as I start to paint over it. And you can also create additional brushes too, so keep that in mind. So if I come back over here and hit that double paper or that duplicate symbol right to just the second one from the right hand side, right underneath there are brush visual, I've made a fourth brush, right? Okay, I've made a fourth brush. And right down here, if we go to our image, I have the blend selected, so that means it's gonna make just a solid color. wherever I'm painting. But I can also come over here and do things like grab the cloud, something like this, right? Which may help you better with creating that texture on the end. So if I play around with this again, this has been applied to this fourth brush. Let's go back to the last brush. See what's happening here. All right, and it's now look at the color. All right, you can see that beige color coming through now. All right, you can kind of get a little bit of that effect. Now some areas is going to be a lot more. It's going to press very light and just kind of just play around with this and have some fun. Nice. Okay. Now to keep in mind that we have another option. We got this smudge. We've got this soften. Let's try to smear, right? And I'm going to start to smear this a little bit. I'm just experimenting here. I'm going to go back and add the darker black along those edges in just a moment. You can see just how the direction that I paint in makes a big difference. See, I'm just smearing the paint. Okay, so if we go back to the paint option, let's make the brush a little bit bigger, and we can lay it down. So you're going to have to rotate your shape so that you're looking at it straight on, so it's going to interpret the effect at maximum ability, right? So I'm just going to lay this on down here on the edge. We're going to come back. We're going to put a little bit more black on those edges there, so it's a little bit more accurate to our image. In fact, we're going to go ahead and do the whole thing. Why not? Rotate it around a little bit. So I want more of a direct view, and adding that little extra texture along with the color that we have is going to help. See, and the more I go over it, the darker things get a little bit. Get a little more richer. All right, now that's my second brush there. If I go to my fourth brush, that should give me the solid color I'm looking for. Oh no, we're still working with this particular texture. Let's actually go to a different one. Let's see what I've got here. Go to this brush. We're gonna have to change up the texture. Let's go to my last brush. And instead of the clouds, let's go over here and grab the blend. There we go. That should do it. So now if I come over, go to my little swatch. I'm gonna go to the lighter one, and the brighter black, and I can lay it on there like this, right on the edge, right? Now I like to work fast. Try not to be anal about this. Be loose about it. Remember, this is like burnt areas. It's going to have a lot of it's not going to be too consistent. Burnt areas. It's going to kind of let your imagination roll and envision how these burnt areas are going to reflect the darker values around these little edges. So we take a look at our reference again, right? We're getting there, right? We're starting to get there. So we're going to add a little bit of a lighter black, of course, and I'm pressing very, very light. Now, I can go ahead, bring the brush a little bit smaller, and kind of start bringing these tips. Start affecting the tips like so. Now, this may not be a dark enough, color. So we might want to go into much darker black. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just take the the luminosity, right, and bring it all the way down to solid black. And let's see how that looks. I'm going to look at my reference once again. So probably on the very tips of the ends, or somewhere down here, is creating a little bit of a darker value. And another thing too, this little beige area could be much richer. In fact, let's do it real quick. I'm gonna go back. I've got another beige option right here, but let's bring it down a little richer, a little deeper. All right, and I'm gonna move it so it's a little more beige-ish. Something like that. And then I think what I like to do also is go back, instead of using the blend, go back and use the clouds again. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, that's nicer. See, that's a little nicer. Now, the more you practice with this, the faster you're going to get with it. I'm going to rotate it around. Just kind of get used to the navigation. It's okay if we spill over a little bit. We can come back and paint it to the right color that we want. And you thought this was going to be super easy and a one-click thing, and all of a sudden it's going to lay down your texture. But no, use your artistic, abilities, right? Come in here and make it look good according to eye-hand connection. There we go. So what if it spills over here a little bit? Don't worry about it. Okay. Now, let's pull this around. I'm going to want some of this to possibly, taking a look at this, to look at the tips of the edges there. We're going to keep them down in the bottom. Make the brush a little bit smaller so it kind of comes in here just a little bit. It'll create a type of a triangular shape, but trust our instincts. Now we're going to come back and we're going to lay on some of the darker black. See where we're going with this? Alright, so let's go to the darker black. So, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just keep this texture, but just go real black. I'm going to come down here and make it real black here. And I don't think it's going to matter so much. So there we go. I'm going to bring it right to the edge of here. I'm just going to press light with the brush. So I think you guys get to the point. So this was not going to be, the solution was not going to be, lay down a photograph and it's all going to just fit real nicely. You got to come in here and do a little bit of work. And what you're going to find out is it's going to start to look more realistic. Let's take a look at our reference real quick. Okay. We'll come in and we'll start painting the tips. I'm going to look at my tips up here. Yeah, so it looks like if I go to the side view, I start to do this technique here, like so. Go to the side, using the edge of my brush, pull it on in, using the edge of my brush, do that all the way around. See? Just gently apply a little bit more and a little bit more. Okay. Gonna rotate around a little bit more. Not bad at all. Make sure it's right on. Okay. All right. So at this point, let's take a look at this. Okay. Let's take a look at it. So it's kind of going in the right direction. We're going to have to come back over and establish these areas in here. All right. We got these areas right in here. We need to bring in a little bit of that effect. I think what I might do is bring up just bring up the darker areas just a little bit. Let's see what it looks like. There we go. Yeah. Bring it on in. Don't worry about it spilling over once again. I want to take a look at my reference once again. Always remind myself. Yep. That's kind of erratic in there. You can see where we're going. It's kind of fun, actually. And being a little sloppy, because that's what smoke and debris is. It's kind of real sloppy in here. Let the error of your the hand, create the effect that you want. Remember, we can change the nature of this texture as well, right? We can come over here to our clouds view, and we can change from soft to hard, right? We don't want to do that, but I'm just sharing that you can do that. We can even change the size of it a little bit. And let's go to my depth. Let's see what happens there as we start to pull it up. I was hoping to see more contrast, but let me kind of pull it on down. Playing around with a few different options here. Go to the colors. Right, contrasts right here. There we go. I'm pulling it past 1.0. That's stronger. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, that's much better. Rotate it around. Okay, so getting the point on this here. So if we bring it around, and now say you want to, and this is really kind of the same thing over here. You want this orange color here. You've got it. If I click on that orange color and start to lay it down, there we go. And it's okay to have some of that dark, texture in there. Maybe I don't want it that strong. Maybe I want to come on back over here to my texture, and instead of take the contrast down, maybe below 1.0, maybe something like really subtle for now, right? And then we'll start laying down some of this orange here. All right, we can always come back and correct. So because we're dealing with one complete airtight object, you can't just give it a color fill, because it's going to fill the entire thing. Let me take a look at that reference again. It's like the whole piece is going to be orange. So I'm going to pull this down. Then these other areas is going to be more of a grayer. But I think you're getting the point. So we start to lay all this down in here. This is looking better than I thought. The cross. Now we see a big area in here. Well, there we go. We got it. It was just taking a little time for it to update. Bring it across. Tap in here. You're kind of getting the point. So some of these areas are on a, you got to get in close because that bigger brush isn't seeing it because we probably had a very odd angle. Alright, so we have to mess with the angle a little bit to make sure everything's going to be filled in there correctly. And of course I need to go back in and take a look at that UV map as well. But in the meantime, we'll go back to our black again. And as you can see, we got a little bit of spillover of that burnt charred area coming into the orange. So we come back out. And we'll play with that. Alright, so you get the point. So for this to work more effectively, you have to have a good UV map. Have a decent UV map. Apply your white PNG image or to your material that you've applied to UV map. So UV map's got to have a material. It's got to have an image associated with that material. I recommend a white a PNG. It'll make things a lot easier from the start. You can put in any image you want in there. If you got an image already done that's going to fit over your UV map area, you can do that and then paint on top of that as a result. Okay, so here, if I go to the orange, for instance, I'm going to click on the orange, and that means I can come back over to here and start laying down some of the orange in the middle area. If I go to my blend option here, I can go to something like multiply. So I think we all know what multiply is going to do. It's going to make it richer and darker, like so. So if I want some of these areas near the burnt areas to show some of that, orange, richer orange darkness come through, you can do that. So keep that in mind. Okay, see where that's going? We're going to do the same thing in here. Right, we got the same thing going on here. And just make a nice little brush. Wiggle it around, coming right along those edges. Pull this back a little bit. Okay, you guys getting the point? So we're making progress. So in this area right in the middle here, you obviously are going to be putting a lot more of the tubing and the hoses and the electrical cords, all type of piping all around the piece. I'm assuming you're going to do that as well. So maybe this here can just take more of the lighter gray area, right? So select the lighter gray and just lay it on down. See, I'm building it on top because I'm using a pen. I'm using a stylus. Okay, is that making sense? So as long as you follow the rules, clean UVs, apply a material, and then the material apply an image. It can be a blank white image, or it can be something else that you're using photographically, or something you painted. Your choice. Just an image has got to be applied to it. Okay, see where we're going with that? Alright, so my goal isn't to paint the whole piece out, but actually I may want to add some. I want to go to this one again. Let's see if I add a little more richness there bring down the luminosity so it's a little more richer, a little more denser there. And I think I'm going to bring back some of the contrast of that noise texture for the clouds here. So we'll go to the contrast and pull it a little stronger, maybe like that. And then lay some of that right down here. And on these little edges coming out. Maybe I want to kind of restrict it to some of these little edges up here. Real fun. Okay. So now it's going to follow along much nicer. And I got remember the multiply is turned on. So it's going to keep building up and making things richer and darker. It's going to be using those blend modes just like we would in Photoshop. Just have fun with it. There you go. As I start to paint over it, the darker areas are affected quicker. And it's starting to look like a little burnt. Just slow transitions from darker to various types of shades of burnt gray. Okay? Making sense? Alright. This is a lot of fun. So here you've got a metal band. If I take a look at this up here, let me go to my object mode. Right up here I got this metal band right about there. And which is not yet in existence. So you might want to make that band separate, put it around it, keep it a separate object. Do not make it airtight with this, so that we can just fill that object with one color and then come back and put in the rivets in and so forth. Okay. And it's not too bad. It's getting closer. Put a more time and work into it. It's gonna look pretty good. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. And just follow those rules. Like most of the sculpting tools in Blender are pretty straightforward and they just work. And we've talked about this before. But with the painting tools, you have to follow some rules. And as I mentioned earlier, those rules are: make sure you have a clean UVs. Your next rule is give it a material. Next rule is apply an image to the material so the image has been attached to your object. Then you can start painting on it. Okay. All right. That's it for today. I'm looking forward to seeing some great work with your homework assignments. Steve Burns signing off.